Welcome to The Critique. Today, we're reviewing a really solid guide on outcome-driven road mapping, specifically the goal, outcome, or GEO roadmap structure.
It's a great piece of work. It does a really nice job defining a planning approach that, prioritizes measurable results over just shipping features.
Absolutely. Okay, let's just jump right into the feedback. We're going to focus on maximizing the clarity and the impact this guide can have for a product manager who's learning this framework.
Sounds good.
And I want to say up front, the core distinction in here between outputs, the features, and outcomes, the user behavior change, is exceptionally well done.
It really is. That foundation is strong, which is a huge asset to build on.
So let's start with our first point. While the material does a great job highlighting that these roadmaps recognize uncertainty, I think we can do more to elevate the strategic significance of that adaptability.
I completely agree. The guide contrasts the traditional roadmap as fixed and prescriptive against the Go roadmap being adaptive and iterative.
Right.
But right now, it feels more like a definition than a powerful argument. I'm not sure it fully gets across the huge financial and strategic risk mitigation that's built into this adaptive structure.
That's it, exactly. That's the weakness. If we don't frame it that way, that flexibility can easily be misinterpreted by stakeholders as, a lack of discipline.
Or just chaos.
Exactly. The guide defines features and initiatives as hypotheses that are flexible and changeable. We need to explicitly connect that flexibility to minimizing wasted development effort.
Because that waste is what kills companies. We're talking about, 12 months of development on a feature nobody actually needed?
Right. And in the Go model, we need to show how we're actively preventing that kind of disaster. It's a core value proposition.
It's so critical. I think most PMs get the tactical benefit of iterating, but leadership just hears we're flexible and they think we don't know what we're doing.
Yeah.
So how do we reframe that? How can we integrate that idea of, financial protection? The money you save by killing a bad idea early.
I think the suggestion is to integrate that concept of continuous validation and learning way more aggressively, especially in the why it matters section.
Okay.
And the key, I think, is to use the structure's own built-in failure points as a selling point. I'm talking about those feature ideas that are literally crossed out in the diagram.
Oh, I love that. So you're saying those aren't failures?
Not at all. They represent costs you've avoided. They're successful discoveries that proved a hypothesis was wrong before you burned a ton of engineering resources on it.
That is a fantastic framing. It turns the whole discovery process into a proactive defense mechanism against that feature factory trap the notes weren't about.
Right.
It changes the whole narrative from, oh, we didn't build it, to, we just saved the company 6 months of developer salary. Now that's actionable.
So to make this really concrete in the guide, we could expand the discussion around Step 5 brainstorm initiatives. Right now, it just has features or validated solutions, but we should stress that only features with a high likelihood of solving the customer problem should ever move forward. It makes that outcome layer an explicit gatekeeper.
And it shows the PM controlling the burn rate. I like that.
And then, for communicating this, we could suggest adding a simple, powerful mantra for the PM to use with stakeholders.
Like a talking point.
Exactly. Something like, Go roadmaps institutionalize learning by measuring impact, which ensures we proactively stop building things that don't drive behavior change.
That puts the focus squarely on value, not just velocity.
And one more thing on this point. The guide mentions a common mistake, trying to predict delivery dates too early.
Yes.
We should connect that directly to the exploratory nature of the whole process. Emphasize that committing to a feature date too early basically kills the discovery process.
It sources a commitment before you've actually learned anything.
You're just back in that old prescriptive, output-driven world.
That's the perfect way to put it. It's a trade-off between certainty and efficiency. If you force certainty too early, you guarantee you'll be inefficient later because you've probably committed to the wrong path.
Yes. And the guide needs to give the PM the language to defend that period of necessary uncertainty.
Great point.
Okay, moving on. The second area for us to focus on is structural clarity, specifically around the concept of roads.
Ah, yes. The roads.
They're described as major work areas or themes, and they're crucial for organizing the tactical work. But the definition needs a bit more refinement to really clarify how they strategically partition the work.
I would agree. I actually found the definition of roads to be let's say, the least precise part of the whole guide.
Right?
Goals are specific. Outcomes are highly specific, but roads are defined a bit vaguely as pathways that often represent constraints, business pillars, or focus areas.
The examples are good, like onboarding optimization road, but that core definition is a bit soft.
And that ambiguity, it kind of waters down their strategic function. The weakness is that it's not totally clear how these paths create boundaries for resource allocation or for specialized teams.
You could end up with duplicated effort or, misaligned teams if you're not careful. We need to define them as more persistent structures.
That's a really useful distinction. So to strengthen this, our suggestion would be to specify that roads act as strategic organizational structures for sustained investment.
Sustained investment in key functional areas or non-functional constraints, right?
Exactly. They ensure that initiatives driving different outcomes but sharing a common pathway are all grouped together. They're like the scaffolding that organizes the people and the domain knowledge.
I like that. It moves them from just being a visual grouping tool to a mechanism for resource alignment.
And for managing expertise. It clarifies their purpose for everyone, especially for engineering leads who need to know which problem spaces they own long term.
So, for concrete examples, we should make that constraint management role really explicit.
Yes, we have to go beyond just product feature roads.
Right. We could introduce a generic but critical example, something like a security and compliance road or a platform scalability road.
Those are perfect, because those are things that run continuously, they impact multiple outcomes, but they aren't tied to just one goal. It shows their persistence.
And it forces the PM to think about that sustained investment in foundational stuff, which often gets, forgotten in purely outcome-focused planning.
So when defining the Geo roadmap structure itself, we need to make the whole hierarchy crystal clear.
Okay.
We should explicitly state, goals define the destination, outcomes define what success looks like, and roads define the major pipelines or theaters of operation where that sustained work happens.
We should probably use an example that really showcases that grouping power.
Good idea.
For instance, let's say the big goal is customer retention. You might have one outcome about improving day 1 retention and another one about day 30 retention.
2 different outcomes.
Right. But both of those initiatives could logically fall under a single ongoing user engagement road.
Because they share the same domain expertise, probably the same team focus.
Exactly. The road isn't defined by the immediate outcome. It's defined by the strategic problem space.
Love it. And then finally, in the communication tips section of the guide, we should advise presenters to use roads to give engineering that clarity on specific problem spaces.
And the expertise needed for a sustained period. It maps the whole concept directly to resource planning, which is hugely valuable for tech leads.
And elevates the road from just a theme to an actual organizational anchor.
Okay, perfect. So let's talk about the foundational definitions themselves. The whole Go framework really depends on that clean separation between the strategic level, the goals, and the tactical level, the outcomes.
Absolutely. And while the notes do a pretty good job conceptually, we need to make it impossible to confuse the two in practice.
I agree 100%. The definitions are clear on the surface, right? A goal is a big strategic objective, like improve customer retention.
And an outcome is a measurable change in user behavior, like day 1 retention goes from 20 to 35%.
But the guide risks allowing what you might call metric creep.
Metric creep, yeah, that's a good term for it, where product teams create these high-level goals that are already too measurable.
And in doing so, they skip that crucial step of defining specific behavior-based targets down in the outcome layer.
And that confusion is so dangerous, it leads to what you could call goal drift. When the goal already has a metric in it, it just stifles creativity at the outcome level.
The outcome just becomes a tactical restatement of the goal.
Right. And you end up asking, how do we hit this metric? Instead of the much more powerful question, which is, what customer behavior change do we need to achieve our strategic direction?
The guide has to enforce that boundary. So the suggestion here is to explicitly reinforce what I'd call an ironclad rule.
Outcomes must always include that quantifiable shift from a baseline.
From X% to Y%.
Always. This forces the team to focus on the specific magnitude of the change they need to create.
And the goal, by contrast, has to remain broader, more aspirational, and strategic, usually on a 6 to 12-month horizon.
It sharpens the focus and guarantees that tactical work is tied to a behavioral magnitude. I think we need a really strong quality check example in the guide to prevent this.
We should definitely suggest adding a critical checkpoint in the section on drafting outcomes. Something like a little warning box.
Yeah, what would it say?
It would say something like, if your goal already contains a baseline and a target metric, for example, increase day 1 retention by 15%, you are treating a goal like an outcome.
And then it tells you what to do.
Right. Refocus the goal to be a broader strategic direction, like strengthen our market position or improve early retention. It gives the PM a self-correction tool.
That's perfect. It directly prevents that blending of the two levels, which, as you said, just kills the strategic intent. We should also lean heavily on the example outcome statement that's already in there.
The one about onboarding?
Yeah, increase percent of users who complete onboarding from 40 to 60% by Q3. We need to use that to show that the quantification, the 40 to 60, is non-negotiable.
And that it provides the necessary tactical detail for measuring progress against a much bigger, more aspirational goal, like improve new user activation.
That tactical detail is where the team lives and breathes. The quantification is what holds them accountable.
And finally, we should call out common mistake number 2 from the guide, outcomes that aren't measurable. We need to stress that those quantitative metrics, like activation rate or time to value, have to be locked into the outcome statement itself.
To prevent any ambiguity.
Exactly. The outcome is the quantifiable change. It's not just a vague desire for change.
By making sure that quantitative line is strictly held between goals and outcomes, the learner can guarantee that every piece of work ties back to a specific, measurable change.
And that's what prevents the whole organization from drifting back into that feature factory mindset that the Go roadmap is designed to avoid in the first place.
Absolutely. These revisions will really maximize the logical robustness and the clarity of this guide.
I think so too.
So, this has been a really productive critique of the outcome-driven roadmapping guide. We covered 3 key opportunities to make this material even stronger.
We did. First, we talked about leveraging the strategic value of adaptive planning, presenting those learning loops and the crossed-out initiatives as proactive, measurable risk mitigation.
It's about communicating financial prudence, not just flexibility.
Second, we advise providing clear definitions and use cases for roads, really emphasizing their function as these persistent strategic pipelines or constraint managers.
Which helps engineering map their resources and their expertise to specific problem spaces much more effectively.
And finally, we really focused on ensuring that strict quantitative distinction between the high-level aspirational strategic goals and the very specific behavior-based quantified outcomes.
That non-negotiable shift from a baseline to a target. It's about preventing that metric creep into the strategic layer.
Exactly.
All of these suggestions are really aimed at helping users create highly robust, logical, and adaptable Go roadmaps. We really encourage you to implement these refinements and submit the revised material back for our next critique.